We're continuing our devotional series in the Gospel of Matthew, looking at Jesus' ministry to restore broken bodies, restore broken hearts, to really restore dignity, our humanity. And when we think about restoration, or some sort of restoration in ourselves, sometimes we think of it as a matter of discipline. How do I shape up? How do I get my act together? And it's really on us, and we measure by these external things, this checklist. If I just do these things, then everything will fall into place. But as we look at the Gospel of Luke, specifically the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, we see that the restoration that Jesus is seeking for us, that the restoration he wants in our lives, begins not with the externals, but with a changed disposition, a different heart. A heart that cares not first about our own reputation or our self-image, but for others. Let me read the parable of the Good Samaritan as we find it in Luke chapter 10. And behold, a lawyer stood up and put him to the test, saying, "Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" And he answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And he said to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live." But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, a journey of about 18 miles, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii, 2 days' wage, and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back." Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? The lawyer said, "The one who showed him mercy." And Jesus said to him, "You go and do likewise." It's an interesting story. The priest, the Levite, the clergy, the pastors of their day, they were brothers in a sense to this victim. They were brothers as Jews in ethnicity and faith. That wasn't true of the Samaritan. The Samaritan was considered less than, a mixture of Jewish blood and foreign blood and a poor religious practice. That was the way they were thought of. But these two, the Levite and the priest, were brothers to the man who fell among the robbers. But it wasn't enough to have them stop and care for him. It wasn't enough for them to take the risk, whatever it might entail, helping him. But unlike the priest and the Levite, when the Samaritan, who is thought of as less than and other and under no obligation to help, when he's confronted with this scene of violence, he engages. He reaches out. When I was in college, I joined a fraternity. I was a member and still am a member of Sigma Chi, and I have friends to this day. There's so much shared life experience at such a formative time in our lives. The games of pool that we played together, soccer, parties, the adversities that we faced together, the heartbreaks, but also falling in love, sharing those stories with each other, the triumphs. And there were also formal commitments that we made to one another. There was a charge that was read to us when we became brothers in the fraternity. It used to be all hush-hush, but now that stuff is all plastered all over the internet. So I want to read a little bit of the charge to us about the friendship we should have. Henceforth you are bound to us by the most sacred ties of friendship and love, in weal or in woe, in sickness or health, in poverty or wealth, through youth, manhood, and old age. You are indissolubly linked to us by that firm chain, the links of which can only be broken by the angel of death. Your joys, your sorrows, your afflictions have all become ours. When the dark clouds of adversities gather around you and your heart is sore, your faith weak, and your courage well nigh gone, forget not that there are strong arms around you, true hearts upon which to rest, and tender sympathies from which to draw consolation for the past, comfort for the present, and hope for the future. And that one line, remember there are strong arms around you, speaks to me in terms of what community and friendship should be. And I remember, along with that, vividly, my father's funeral. He died the last week of classes, my senior year in college. And my mind was awash in grief and sorrow and the details of getting home and the funeral, that I wasn't really aware of all who had come to the funeral. But as I was being led out of the service, as the family often is, right at the end, the family leaves first, I could see that the last few rows of the church were filled with my fraternity brothers. And I didn't know it until that moment. They were there. When we see people in pain, our first instinct should not be, what is this going to cost me? Instead, our instinct should be, how can I help? That's not about a checklist. That's about a disposition. Now, perhaps some things are beyond our ability to really help. And perhaps some things, as we think about helping, might interfere with some of our more close responsibilities to our family, to provide for them. But as we have those thoughts, that's wisdom shaping the embodiment of caring. It's not self-interest, looking to protect self, but also keep up appearances, not appear like we're callous people. We need to be people of compassion. That's what Jesus is saying. That's what should be in our heart. And it should be fueled by the fact that the Lord is compassionate with us. Let his compassion fuel our compassion. And sometimes the embodiment of that is simple. Attending a funeral or letting someone in pain know that you remember what's going on with them and that you're thinking about them and that you're even praying for them. Sometimes it is risky. Like stopping on a dark road at night when you see an accident. You don't really know what you're going to encounter. You don't really know if there are going to be other cars coming along that road that may endanger you. And sometimes it's very involved, like opening your home to a foreign exchange student or an orphan, or for a time helping somebody who has lost their home. If our instinct is, how can I protect myself in this? Something is amiss in our hearts, in our relationship with God. If our instinct isn't, how can I help? How can I be a part of restoration? If that's not what's driving us, something has gone wrong in our understanding of God's love for us and his initiative with us. How should we assess? How should we assess ourselves? Well, Jesus lets the lawyer assess the situation. Which of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? And the lawyer said, the one who showed him mercy. And notice the shift. The question originally started as, well, who qualifies as my neighbor? And now it's become, who is being a neighbor? It's no longer external, who qualifies as my neighbor. It's about me. How can I be a neighbor? Jesus wants you to be his strong arms to throw around people in need. Find a way to do that this week. Blessings on you all.